So today we'll be talking about general pharmacology. So in general pharmacology, this pharmacokinetics and the pharmacodynamics. So pharmacokinetics is when what happens uh, to the drug. How is it absorbed, how is it distributed, how is it metabolized, and how is it excreted. And before we know, see a drug. See, if a drug is like, for example, if you have an hormone, it can either be lipid soluble or water soluble. A drug can have both components, lipid soluble and water soluble also. Now, regarding whether it's lipid soluble or water soluble, that will be based on not just only the uh, drug's essence. It can also be based on the pKa of the drug and the uh, pH of the body. Now, a drug can be absorbed in not with the help of many factors. For example, the size of the drug, the solubility of the drug, the surface area, the pH, the blood flow, everything will contribute to the absorption of the drug. Now, for example, we have acidic. Now this is the equation: pH is equal to pKa plus log of ionic by non-ionized. So if pH is equal to pKa, for example, then what happens is that 50% of the drug will be ionized and 50% of the drug will be non-ionized. So ionized drug is see ionized drug. I'll just show you 1 second. So ionized drug is morely inactive. It cannot enter into the cell and it will be easily lost in the water. It cannot pass through the membranes. It cannot pass through metabolism. So it will be lost to the water. Whereas non-ionized drugs or lipid soluble drugs, you can say it as lipid soluble. Non-ionized are lipid soluble and ionized are water soluble. This will be lost in urine. Okay, but this is not lost in urine, and this will be active. It can enter the cell, it can undergo metabolism, everything can happen in a non-ionized cell. Now since the drug can have both essence, ionized or non-ionized, it has to be dependent on the pKa and the pH. For example, for an acidic drug, let's consider there's an acidic drug, and we put it in a with respect to the pH, and we'll say whether the drug is water soluble or lipid soluble. For example, when the pH and pK are the same, then 50% of the drug will be water soluble and 50% of the drug will be lipid soluble. But if the pH is more than that of that, for example, if the pH is more basic than the pKa of the drug, that is, for example, if the drug is acidic and the pH is basic, what happens is an acid and a base, when it's joined together, it becomes more ionized. So ionized part will be more and it will be easily lost in the urine. You get it? It's excreted in the urine, easily lost in the urine. But if the same thing happens here. The same drug, if the acidic drug is put in a in an acidic medium, so what happens is it will be more acidic, so it will be more non-ionized, it will be reabsorbed, it stays in the body, it stays in the blood, it is not going to be excreted often. So this is what happens. For example, for acidic drugs like aspirin, barbiturates like thiopentol, methylhexol, not the opiates are basic drug. Aspirin, methotrexate, barbiturates, all these drugs are acidic. So if you put these in order to make the drugs excreted, that is what it depends. In order to make the drug excreted, what do? We alkalinize, put them in a basic medium. So we alkalinize the urine. How do we alkalinize the urine? By using sodium bicarbonate or also using acetaldehyde. So this is what happens. There's something, so the same opposite happens if you put a basic drug. For a basic drug like amphetamines, opiates, what we do is we acidify them. You can give vitamin C, you can give ammonium chloride, you can also give cranberry juice. That's why UTI, in order to acidify the urine, you give cranberry juice. Now there's something called iron tapping. So iron tapping is then, so for example, when you give a normally in pregnant women, the baby's blood pH is more acidic than that of an adult, the mother's pH. So if the mother's pH is 7.35 to 7.45, the baby's pH is 7.25 to 7.35. So fetal blood is more acidic than that of the mother's blood. So if you give opiates or local anesthetics which are basic to the baby, what happens is when opiates enter into the baby's blood, the base and the acidic will become ionized and it will excrete. But ionized will not cross any membranes. It cannot cross the placenta, it cannot cross it cannot cross any membrane, so it becomes trapped in the baby's blood itself, and so it cannot even move against the concentration gradient, so it becomes toxic. That is why they ask a mother to not have opiates or local anesthetics when you are pregnant. So this is what. Now the important thing for absorption is it is bioavailability. So see, for absorption, when you give a drug, either oral or IV, always it undergoes first pass metabolism. See, first pass metabolism is when the amount of drug metabolized in the liver before it reaches the systemic circulation. So when you give a drug, what happens? It goes to the liver, it gets metabolized, and then everything is being sent back to the blood. So this is what, because there is distribution and redistribution happening. So when you give a drug, it is not like it goes to all the tissues at the same time. No, when you take a blood, it goes to the stomach, it goes to the portal circulation, it goes to the liver. The liver metabolizes it, and what happens? It will go to primarily it will go to the 4 main important organs, like your heart, your kidney, your brain, and your and your liver. So first it goes to distribute there. I'll show you that. See, see what happens is, once the drug is absorbed, first distributed to the highly vascular organs, brain, heart, liver, and kidney, and then it is, after reaching a certain concentration, after it reaches concentration, now this will have high concentration, and the other tissues like fat, muscles will have low concentration, and then it is redistributed. That is why we keep on giving drugs. We want to achieve a steady state saturation. Why do we want to achieve this saturation? Is that then there's a saturation when both the when the concentration of this is also the same as this, then there's no longer transfer of drug from one organ to another. That is what you see it as a steady state concentration. Okay, now why do we talk about the steady state concentration is, see, when you keep on giving a drug, when you keep giving a drug, what happens is, this is what happens. You give a drug, it becomes 100, and it becomes 50, and then you keep giving a drug. At one point it reaches where the amount of drug given will be equal to the amount of drug excreted, so that it doesn't become toxicity. That is why we should know what is steady state concentration. Steady state concentration is not for chumma, we are not learning. We just want to know, because at that time there is no more if you exceed that, it will definitely become toxic. So you will also know the therapeutic range of the drug. That is important of the steady state concentration. Okay, now once after the first pass metabolism, after the drug is in the blood, now this bioavailability. What is bioavailability is, see, if you give a drug for this, if this is okay, for 1 second. Okay, see, if this is time and this is plasma concentration, when you give IV, concentration will be at initially it will be 100 and it'll gradually increase to 0. This is the plasma concentration after a particular time when given IV. But in oral it isn't like that. In oral what happens is, first it gradually increases because it has to undergo first pass metabolism, and then it decreases. Now the area under this curve is called as bioavailability. So bioavailability is always, you say it in percentage, because if for example if a bioavailability of a drug is 50%, we say it is 50% compared to the drug if it is given as IV. Do you get it? Yeah, compared to the drug if it is IV, because bioavailability is equal to area under curve of oral divided by area under curve in IV into 100. So that is what we say it as bioavailability. Okay. And okay, also, yeah, if there is high first pass metabolism, for example, there will be very decreased bioavailability. For example, in IV is 100%. In IM, it's IV is on maximum bioavailability is this, and the minimum bioavailability is oral, because it undergoes first pass metabolism. In oral alone, we have this kind of shape. It has to undergo metabolism. It has to come to the blood. In IV, it isn't like that. It directly goes into the blood. So that is why IV has a more bioavailability than compared to that of every other routes of administration. This is absorption. And okay, next, distribution. Now distribution, next is distribution. Now distribution of a drug, we'll see it in next video.